Hello and welcome to the Election Corner on One Man Think Tank. Today I'm going to be going over the 2018 Senate election prediction. Or rather, my 2018 Senate election prediction and how I got it wrong. As you can tell from the unique setup we've got this time, this is going to be a little bit different. And I thought, well, a little bit of backstory. Before I started this channel, I was actually originally planning on starting it in 2018 for the midterm, for all the big election stuff, and I had a prediction for it. But life happened and the channel didn't, so the channel never manifested and no one ever saw this prediction. However, and I don't feel bad admitting this, I got it wrong. But I feel it's important that you know how I got it wrong and, frankly, why I got it wrong. Because I am issuing election predictions on this channel. I want you to have the maximum amount of knowledge on where my biases lie and how I get things right and when I get things wrong. So without further ado, we'll jump right into the 2018 election. Orange represents non-election Republican seats, so these seats aren't up for election at all. Purple represents non-election Democrats. I am also including the Alabama state special election that was Roy Moore versus Doug Jones, because that was part of this whole build-up to 2018, and we'll start with Alabama before we go through the rest. Now, for those of you who can't remember, leading into the election, it was sitting at, I believe, 49 for the Democrats, 51 for the Republicans. Technically, because Alabama got factored in there. So we'll just knock off Alabama, then we can get into the real race. Now, the Alabama election was between Roy Moore and Doug Jones, and on election night, my prediction for it was Tilt Democratic. Tilt had just been introduced in all of the software, so it was fun to play with, but on election night, I felt that Doug Jones had a slight advantage, the most minute. Why did I believe he had a slight advantage? Well, frankly, for one reason. Because Roy Moore was the world's most awful candidate. He was an open pedophile, well, not open as in it's admitted, but seemingly outed as one. He did not do a good job of gathering supporters. Donald Trump wasn't originally supporting him, and Doug Jones was so inoffensive, but left-wing enough, that he was bringing out Democratic voters. And Democrats really wanted to get in a punch after the shellacking they had in the 2016 presidential election. And they got it. So I got Alabama right. And I was right, it was close. Now on to the general election. So first off, California I predicted would be safe Democratic. This was an easy prediction on account of the fact that, well, California's race was between a Democrat and a Democrat, because that's how jungle primaries work. I personally predicted Dianne Feinstein would win out of the two of them, though I thought it would be a lot closer. She defeated her opponent, De Leon, very easily. And don't expect me to know everyone's names. It's been 2 years, people. Okay, up to Washington, another safe blue. Washington State is as safe blue as you can get on the West Coast outside of California, due to the Seattle area. Oregon has more of a purple streak than Washington does. But I was correct. Washington was straight blue, great for the Democrats. Nevada was the next race on hand, and this race had a Republican incumbent, but the challenger, Jackie Rosen, I believe her name was, or still is, was a solid challenger to him. And Nevada flipped in 2016. This led me to putting Nevada as leans blue. I was periodically in agreement and in disagreement with the big pollsters. A lot of them put it as tilt or toss-up. As you know, I don't do toss-up. But if I was doing this election today, as in if I was prepping for the 2018 election with my knowledge of my biases from this, I would have actually put Nevada as likely blue. Because you need to trust short-term polling effects, such as the Democrats being highly motivated to turn out, Nevada going blue at the presidential level in 2016, and also the seemingly lower turnout of Republicans on the West Coast, whether it's due to them going independent or flipping to the Democrats or just staying home. Those are not good numbers if you want to be a Republican. And, sorry, I actually missed this one when going through again. Hawaii was actually also contested in this one. It was safe blue. Hawaii's Republican Party basically doesn't exist. If you put it as anything less than safe blue, you were probably either very right-wing or a tad insane. Maybe colorblind, who knows. Arizona was an interesting one because it was a special election to replace John McCain. And it was Martha McSally versus Kristen Sinema. And what I ended up saying is, this is tilt blue. And boy was I right, because anyone who stayed up with 2018 remembers that at the very end of the night, we were still counting Arizona and no one was sure who won. I think it was 3 days out before anyone was solidly sure that it had flipped to the Democrats. So this was Martha McSally's possibly first defeat, and I'm pleased with my tilt call here. I think, in hindsight, what I would have done, given how long it ran for, probably would have, if I was doing this election again today, I might have put it as tilt Republican or tilt Democrat. I'm not 100% sure. It would require me looking back at the polls again to see what it was like and how the statewide races went, because I thought this entire state was going to go blue as well. I thought not the entire state, but the governorship was tilt blue as well, and I got that totally wrong. So I'm not sure if I would redo how I predicted the Senate election and actually flip my prediction to being the wrong prediction. But for right now, we'll say I do tilt blue. New Mexico, solid blue, Democratic hold. You see, this year, 2018, was a big year for the Democrats having a lot of their seats up, meaning that if someone like Hillary Clinton had won the presidency, it could have given the Republicans a supermajority in the Senate, which, depending on which side you're on, was either great news or terrible news. But New Mexico was one of the safe seats for the Democrats. It wasn't going to flip. New Mexico has been a blue state for quite a while. We'll do Texas last. Utah, on the other hand. Now, here's how Utah started for me. I actually had Utah as likely blue when the whole predictions started out, because the incumbent senator, Udall, I think his name was, or I'm getting this totally wrong, said he would self-term limit and then didn't, before being absolutely kicked out by Mitt Romney, and Mitt Romney made this a solid red seat. That is total honesty. It's King of the Mormons running in a Mormon state. He was destined to win. Up to Wyoming, solid red for the Democrats, for the Republicans. You'll have to forgive me, a little tired. Solid red. The Democrats never run anyone in Wyoming, and it never turns out good for them because they never run anyone. Even if they did run someone, they'd probably still lose, but solid red. Nebraska. Now, for Nebraska, I put it as likely red. This is a prediction I would change in if I was doing the election again today to solid red. And the reason being, when I was looking at Nebraska, I saw solid movement in the Omaha-Lincoln area, their big metro area, towards voting more blue. And I misunderstood how the blue wave would happen. I thought it would be a surge in uptick of urban voters. It actually turned out to be a surge and an uptick in suburban voters voting for the Democrats. I thought there would be more turnout in the big cities, so the Democrats wouldn't do as well in the House, barely win but not sweep, but do great but do a lot better than people thought in the Senate. It was actually suburban voters that turned out, and urban voters turned out about as much as you'd expect. So Nevada, I'd actually put as safe red if I was doing it today. Up to Montana, here's one I put as leans Democrat. I know on Election Day, a lot of people like 538 put it to tilt, and it was a close race. I'm pretty sure John Tester won by, and I think he was running against Rosen something. He won by, I think, like 50.5%. So he barely won. However, my predictions aren't necessarily based on how much a candidate's going to win, but whether or not they're going to win. Does that make sense? So I felt that while it would be a tight race, that 60% of the time it would stay with the Democrat because Tester had incumbency bias, was popular in the state, and also had the backing of Steve Bullock. So we'll have to see how that reflects in 2020. But I'm pleased with my leans call on this one. I feel it was the right call to make, even if the race was close. North Dakota. I put this one as tilt Republican, and I went back and forth a lot on this one. North Dakota was tilt Republican, tilt Democrat, tilt Republican, tilt Democrat, depending on how the polling showed, how generic Democrat was doing overall versus generic Republican, how the actual Senate polls were coming in, and on election day, my call was, North Dakota is probably 52% of the time going to flip. And if I was redoing this today, I'd actually want to put it as leans. I think, same thing with Nebraska. There was a lot of overestimating the blue wave and what it would do. So I thought, well, if there are enough people who come out from Fargo and in the Native American areas and Trump turnout and Republican turnout is down. That's the other thing. I thought Republican turnout would take a slight dip. Republican turnout actually went up too. It's just Democratic turnout was much more. So I thought, okay, there's enough of a minor turnout that these minor tilt races, that all of those races which will be close will be stuck in tilt. I think if I was doing it again today, this would be leans. Okay. Minnesota. Safe blue, safe blue. Look. On election day, everyone for the special elections was putting, it's likely Democrat for the Minnesota Senate election, and it's likely Republican for the Mississippi Senate election, and it's not. I'm sorry, but at the end of the day, if one is flipping, the other's flipping too. Or not flipping. In this case, it was a hold for the Democrats. But it's unlikely people are going to, especially in these very partisan times, that people are going to do split ticket on the Senate. That's really unlikely. You might still have some suburban voters who go, well, I want a blank president with the opposite party as the Congress. But you're not going to see a person split ticket on the Senate. So I've put them both as safe, and I am pleased with putting them both as safe. Continuing through the Great Lakes, with Wisconsin, I put it as likely Democrat. I don't like my call on this. I wish I had put it as leans. I think I underestimated Scott Walker. I thought after his pitiful performance in 2016 as the presidential nominee, he would have enough baggage that he would have trouble going again, plus all of the Wisconsin-based crises, such as Foxconn. That was a really big one. I thought he would have notably less support than he turned out having. So I wish I had put this as leans Democratic, as opposed to likely. Michigan, on the other hand, I put as leans, as a safe Democratic. Because, frankly, I saw Michigan's flip in 2016 as a bit of a fluke. And we'll have to see if that's true in 2020. But I don't regret putting Michigan as safe here. You also had the, I'm forgetting their name now, but the incumbent senator had a great campaign, and overall, easy win for them. We'll get back to Indiana in a moment. We're gonna do these ones in a moment. These were the really painful ones. Ohio, I put as likely Democrat. I thought Ohio was tilting more red, and I thought Sherrod Brown, if someone was going to win, it was going to be Sherrod Brown. And he did. So I got this one right. Looking back, I actually wish I had put it as safe. I very much underestimated Sherrod Brown and his ability to win. I assumed Ohio's turn to the red side was a lot more permanent than it was. Or was more wall to wall than it was. West Virginia, safe blue. This is Joe Manchin. And I said the only Democrat who can get properly elected in West Virginia right now is Joe Manchin, and I was right. We'll have to see how Ojeda does in 2020, but if you want my opinion, he's not going to make it very far, and you've seen that. Now, here's what at the time was a controversial choice, but is becoming a lot less of one. Virginia was safe blue, as was basically every other state in the Northeast. I'll do Pennsylvania in a moment, but all of these states make up a very blue backbone for the Democrats. And Virginia was considered to be, it's a toss, it's not toss-up, but, it's only leans Democrat. If the Republicans run the right Republican, they didn't. They ran a guy who had a complete cluster of a campaign. It was a total mess. Like, genuinely, he was the wrong guy to run. And also the fact Virginia went blue in 2016 when key Democratic states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin did not. That's a sign a state is safe blue at the statewide level. Okay, Pennsylvania, I put as leans Democrat. I regret this. I wish I had put it as safe. Because, total honesty, the incumbent, Cassidy, I believe, blew his opponent out of the water. And I think what happened is I got paranoid. I got convinced that the Pennsylvania area, the bit here in the center, had kind of won the state. And I don't know why I had thought that. I must have kind of circular logicked myself into playing Pennsylvania as a lot more contested than it actually was. Because I know a couple days before, because I'm literally, I looked at my final map before this, because I know a couple days before I had it at least at likely. So there must have been something that came out to spooked me. Okay, now on to the ones that were really painful. Indiana, I put as leans Democrat. This was a flip to the Republicans. I thought Donnelly would win. For one main reason. He polled decently, he got significant support in the Indianapolis area, and I made the mistake of thinking there would be high urban turnout and moderate Republican turnout. If I had known Republican turnout would have gone up, I would have put it to tilt blue, but if you want my total honesty, I don't think I would have flipped it. And that's something I have put in hindsight bias. However, given the info I was given and the I learned from this, and the info I was given on the day, I think I would have put it to tilt, but I might have left it here, because there was no indication that Indiana, Missouri, and Florida would be the flips they were. Missouri was a little bit obvious. I thought that Hawley, the opponent of Claire McCaskill, I thought, given the fact he was tied to a corrupt governor, put this state as tilt blue. It turned out to be a Republican win, and I think a little bit of a blowout, honestly. And I got this one wrong. I think I just overestimated the blue wave and underestimated Republican turnout. If I was doing this again today, I definitely would have put Missouri as leans red. Tennessee, I put as leans Republican. And if I knew what I knew today, Tennessee would have been likely Republican, at the very least. Why? I'm sorry, but that was a blowout. Dresden was, the Democrat, was completely destroyed. And for a simple reason. There was not the urban Democratic base that people thought there was in Tennessee to turn out. There were a lot of Republican voters living in suburbia, living in cities, who turned out to vote Republican. And I wasn't expecting that. I don't think a lot of pollsters were expecting that. But Republicans held on to this seat with ease. And that was a mistake I made. Okay, Mississippi, for the main election, I put as safe. This was a no-brainer at the time, and Republicans held the seat. However, for the special election, which occurred after the general, because in the general they had a jungle primary where a bunch of candidates ran. Then you had a Democrat and a Republican win the top two, Cindy Hyde-Smith and Mike Espy. They're going at again in 2020. And what I ended up doing is I put it as leans Republican when I was making my prediction on Election Day, because I knew those two would come out. However, after Election Day, I put it as likely Republican. The reason for the change is I thought, given my prediction, that the Democrats would end up, after Florida, with 50 seats. And Republicans would end up with, Republicans would end up with 49 seats. Meaning the Democrats would have extra incentive to try and drive turnout in Mississippi to replicate the Alabama miracle. After that didn't happen, and the Republicans gained a 53-seat majority, well, technically 52-seat majority, 53 after the special. I was Mississippi. No one was really interested in Mississippi's special election. I mean, people were interested, but no one thought it was going to be something groundbreaking, so there wasn't some last-minute get-out-to-vote drive. Okay, Florida. As I've just spoiled, I thought Florida was going to be leans Democratic. I thought it would be I thought there was a solid chance the Republican could win. And total honesty, if I did this again today, probably would put Florida as leans blue. Because I was not expecting the incumbent to, as we now learned in retrospect, I thought with a high-profile governor race and a lot of last-minute attention, as well as the progressive ballot initiatives on it, there would be a lot of turnout for Democrats in Florida, and they would be close races, but the Democrats would win. They got beaten in the governor race, not decisively, but a noticeable distance. While in Florida, it was tight, but the Democrats lost the Senate race. And I actually put that a lot more on the senator really not doing much of a campaign down there, which ended up costing him the election. I wish I had paid more attention onto Election Day on how he was doing. Because if I had known how his campaign cared, I would have put this as tilt blue. I don't think I would have been bold enough to flip it on its own right, because I thought Florida was a lot more purple than I think it may actually be. And lastly, we have Texas. And Texas, and I am sticking with this rating, was tilt red. Ted Cruz versus Beto O'Rourke, the match of the season. Could the Democrats flip Texas as the ultimate rebuttal to Trump? And the answer was no. However, the race got a lot closer than anyone expected. And if a few more districts in Texas had turned out for the Democrat, or a few less had turned out for the Republican, the Democrats would have flipped it. There wasn't some secret constituency that just showed up to vote for the Republican that saved them, or the Democrats, they underperformed or they overperformed. No, the Republicans were most likely going to hang on to this seat in like 52% of the time, but it was just down to turnout, as opposed to something like Montana, which ended up as leans blue, because we already knew how the chips were going to fall 55 to 60% of the time, with with John Tester winning. Texas, on the other hand, it was getting really too close to call there, and I genuinely think if there had been a little bit more of a get-out-to-vote drive in places like El Paso and Dallas-Fort Worth, the Democrats could have flipped the Texas Senate seat. But my prediction, as you can see, came down to 50-50 at the end of the day. 50 Democrats, 50 Republicans, which of course gives the Senate to the Republicans, but makes it so It's a lot. They can't have any diversions, such as a Mitt Romney on impeachment or something like that. But that's not how it turned out. Republicans actually flipped Indiana, flipped Florida, and flipped Missouri, while Democrats flipped Arizona and Nevada. Oh, the Republicans also flipped North Dakota. And there were a lot more holds than, well, I predicted all of the holds. But I didn't get these 4 flips. These 3 flips. And the reason was I overestimated the ability of moderate Democrats to turn out voters, and the turnout of that there would be a high turnout of Democrats and a low turnout of Republicans. So, when watching my predictions in the future, please keep that in mind. That at the end of the day, my predictions will lean towards the Democrats, but also this will possibly change for 2020, you can check me on that, but will lean a lot more towards a state's current tendency. So I won't look back and go, well, 8 years ago, Virginia was purple, so that means that it's slowly getting... No, I'm going to call states based on about the past 4 or 5 years, rather than looking back at incumbency, and how they voted for the last president or something like that. Or 2 presidents ago or something like that. But with that all being said, if you liked the video, please leave a like down below, and while you're down there, leave a comment or a question, whatever you see fit. It helps grow the channel, and lets me know that people are actually engaged with the content. Otherwise, if you want to see more from this channel, please click the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can see when a new video is uploaded. Otherwise, as always, have a wonderful day.